The cavity tool is used to essentially create a pocket that does not go all the way through the panel. Front Panel Designer also now has the capability to create a rectangular or round cavity with a solid rectangle or round shape within the cavity, all within the Cavity Properties window. This can also be used to position a cavity around a hole. In this tutorial, I will start by creating a basic rectangular cavity, then move on to creating a rectangular cavity positioned around a round hole on the back side of the panel. I will begin by first selecting the Cavity tool at the top of the screen. I want to place this cavity directly underneath the first square hole in the series of 4 already on my panel. So I select the Origin option that allows me to position a new object in relation to another object. I then click on the origin of the object that I want to place the cavity underneath, and I enter -20 millimeters in the DY field. This will position the cavity 20 millimeters below the square hole. When I hit OK, the Cavity Properties window automatically comes up. In the Shape drop-down menu, I choose Rectangle, as I would like a square cavity. Next, I enter the height and width of the desired cavity. In this case, I would like a 14 millimeter square, so I enter 14 into both fields. Once I have the size of the cavity, I must choose a depth for the cavity. It is important to take into consideration the thickness of the panel, because I must leave a minimum of 0.5 millimeter of the panel in order to maintain a smooth surface on the other side. I am working with a 4 millimeter panel, so a depth of 1 millimeter leaves plenty of panel remaining. Similar to the rectangular hole tool, I must choose a corner radius. The tools used to mill your panel are round, so therefore a perfect right angle is not possible. So I must account for the corner radius when measuring for the device that will fit into the cavity. Also, as I decrease the radius of the corners, the price might increase to allow for tool changes and smaller tools used. I choose a corner radius of 1 millimeter. You might notice the tool selection option. Front Panel Designer will automatically select the best tool to use, taking into account the size and corner radius of your cavity, as well as the flexibility and limitations of the machinery used to mill your panel. Therefore, it is suggested that you leave the automatic selection box checked. At this point, my rectangular cavity is complete, so I hit OK, and my cavity appears where I positioned it on my panel. Now, I will create a rectangular cavity on the back of the panel, around a hole that is already in place. With the Cavity tool still selected, I click on the Origin option that allows me to position an object based on the reference point of another object. I then click on the reference point of the object that I want to position this cavity around. This will bring up the Cavity Properties window. I select Circle and Rectangle from the Shape drop-down menu. Then I check the Place on Reverse Side box. I would like the rectangular portion of the cavity to be a 14 millimeter square, so I enter 14 into both the height and depth fields. I then enter a depth of 1 millimeter, as well as a 1 millimeter corner radius. Front Panel Designer gives the option to rotate the cavity, but I will leave the rotation set to 0 to keep it straight. Again, I leave the automatic selection box checked and allow Front Panel Designer to choose which tool to use. And now I move on to the circle within the cavity. The existing hole is 9 millimeters, so this is the diameter I enter for the circle. I can offset the inner shape horizontally or vertically with the fields to the right. However, I want my inner circle to be centered, so I leave both fields set to 0. Finally, I hit OK, and my cavity is positioned on the panel. I have now created a rectangular cavity on the front of the panel and a cavity around a hole on the back side of the panel.